The alien queen let me go until her child chased after me calling my name. Evan woke up to the soft hum of machinery and the faint smell of metal. The air was cooler than he remembered, but it was not unpleasant. He was lying on a smooth platform, a thin blanket pulled over him. Around him, walls of silver shimmered faintly under soft lights that seemed to respond to his movement. The room was quiet, almost serene, yet he knew he was not free. He had been taken by the alien fleet days ago during a routine scouting mission near the disputed border of human and alien space. The event replayed in his mind like a broken loop, a blinding flash of light, the sudden surge of force, and then the feeling of being lifted off his ship without resistance. Now he was here in what he guessed must be part of the alien capital. He pushed himself up and looked around. The design was unlike anything human engineers had created. Walls were curved, seamless, and cold, yet elegant. No joints, no rivets, nothing that betrayed construction methods. The lighting adjusted automatically as he shifted his gaze, highlighting the alien precision. Despite the alien technology, there was no immediate threat visible. That thought did little to calm him. Humans rarely experienced situations where survival depended not on hiding or fighting, but on behavior, on perception. A soft hiss sounded behind him, and the door slid open with a smooth motion. Evan turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was a figure taller than any human, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal and eyes that glowed faintly like starlight. It moved with a grace that made every human motion seem clumsy by comparison. The figure's gaze settled on him, studying, calculating. Evan forced himself to remain still, knowing that any sudden movement could be interpreted as aggression. "You may rise," a voice said, calm yet carrying an authority that made Evan's spine stiffen. The words were accented, shaped by a throat unlike a human's, yet he understood every syllable. Evan stood. He measured his tone carefully. "I am Evan. I am willing to cooperate." The figure tilted its head slightly. A small gesture, almost imperceptible, yet it held meaning. "Your species is unusual," it said. "You do not fight when cornered, yet you do not beg. You are calm." Evan did not respond immediately. Calm was not an act, it was survival. In human culture, even in captivity, fear was acknowledged but controlled. It was a strength. These aliens may not have understood it, but that did not matter. What mattered was their observation and how he presented himself. "I am human. I adapt. That is what we do." The alien considered this, then gestured to a corridor. Evan followed, his steps careful, every movement deliberate. As he moved, he noticed the faint signs of life in the palace. Other aliens moved about, but they kept distance, avoiding his path entirely. Some glanced curiously, others with suspicion. It was clear he was a subject of study, an anomaly they could not easily categorize. They arrived at a large chamber filled with what appeared to be machinery and living quarters fused into one. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Devices hummed quietly, adjusting temperatures, controlling light, and moving fluids through translucent tubes. But among all this technology were signs of care. Plants thriving in glass containers, small areas that mimicked natural environments, and even a room that seemed to be designed for young aliens, though he did not see any children at first. "You will remain here for observation," the alien said. Its tone left no room for argument. "Your behavior will be noted. You may not leave unless authorized." Evan nodded. It was more than he expected. Often captives were confined in cold cells, left alone to fear or starve. Here he was given space to move, to observe. He also realized the opportunity this presented. If he behaved correctly, if he proved his usefulness, he could gain influence, however small, within the palace. Influence could be survival. Survival could be freedom or something greater. Days passed. Evan learned the rhythms of the palace without being told. He noticed when doors opened automatically, which rooms were controlled by machines, and which areas the aliens avoided entirely. He began fixing minor malfunctions, a heating conduit that had failed, a light array flickering, a small storage door jammed. The aliens observed silently, sometimes taking notes, sometimes simply watching. Each success added a fraction of trust, though they would never call it that. Then came the first real test. A nursery chamber designed for the alien young was experiencing a critical failure. A cooling system had malfunctioned, threatening the delicate balance of temperature for the developing creatures. Panic swept through the staff as they attempted to override the system, but the alarms only intensified. Evan, guided by observation and intuition, stepped forward. He examined the controls, reading symbols and diagrams that made little sense at first. Slowly, methodically, he adjusted valves, rerouted energy flows, and brought the system back online. The alarms ceased. The young aliens were safe. For a brief moment, Evan glimpsed something unexpected, a shimmer of recognition from the adults and a curious gaze from a small figure hiding behind a transparent wall. It was the child of the Queen, he realized. Small, fragile, yet alert and intelligent. And for the first time, Evan felt a flicker of connection, something beyond duty or survival. The Queen herself appeared shortly after. Her presence dominated the chamber. Her eyes, cold and calculating, swept over Evan. Yet this time there was a hint of something different, acknowledgement, perhaps even respect. "You have skills that are unexpected," she said. "Few of your species could manage such precision under pressure." Evan nodded, careful not to appear boastful. "I do what I can." "That is what humans do." Her gaze lingered on him longer than was comfortable. There was intelligence there, a recognition of traits she had not anticipated in a species she considered inferior. Yet she did not soften. She merely turned and left, signaling that his evaluation was ongoing. Over the following weeks, Evan became a quiet presence in the palace. He repaired machinery, soothed frightened servants, and even taught simple tasks to the young aliens, including the Queen's child. The child, curious and intelligent, began to imitate him, learning quickly. Evan realized that in these small interactions, he was not just surviving, he was influencing. Humans did not dominate through brute force alone. They dominated through adaptability, understanding, and courage. These aliens were beginning to see that. One evening, Evan stood in a balcony chamber overlooking the city below. The alien architecture stretched endlessly, a testament to logic and order. Yet amidst the perfection, he saw something missing: spontaneity, flexibility, warmth. He understood then why humans were considered fragile yet dangerous. Fragility allowed adaptation, danger lay in the unexpected. The Queen, observing him from a distance, must have recognized this truth as well. But even as he gained their respect, he knew danger was never far away. The palace, no matter how grand, was still a cage. Every action, every success was being recorded. A single mistake could undo everything. And the Queen's child, innocent as it seemed, was part of a game he did not yet fully understand. Despite the risk, Evan chose to continue. He continued repairing, teaching, and interacting, knowing that his human qualities, compassion, intelligence, adaptability, were his strongest tools. Each day he saw subtle changes in the court. Less suspicion in the eyes of the staff, small gestures of trust from alien observers, and the curious gaze of the Queen herself, always analyzing, always calculating. He understood one truth clearly: freedom would not be given lightly, but influence, trust, and small victories could carve a path that might lead to it. The aliens might be stronger physically, technologically superior, and politically dominant, but they had yet to comprehend the quiet power of a human who remained calm, resourceful, and determined. Evan returned each day to the nursery chamber, where the child awaited him. Together they fixed devices, organized small tasks, and even played simple games that the child invented. The interactions were subtle, almost invisible to others, but they left an impression. The Queen watched. Observing Evan's patience, skill, and courage, she could not dismiss the idea that humans might not only survive, but teach, lead, and inspire in ways alien logic could not predict. As the cycle of days continued, Evan felt a strange sense of purpose. He was a prisoner, yes, but also a bridge. A bridge between species, a symbol that humans could endure, adapt, and influence even the mightiest of empires. And somewhere deep in his mind, he wondered if this strange connection, the child, the Queen's quiet acknowledgement, might one day shift the balance of power in ways no one yet imagined. The hum of the palace machinery became familiar, the once intimidating lights comforting. He moved through the halls with quiet confidence, each step a reminder that survival was only the first part. Influence, trust, and subtle power were the next. And in the eyes of the Queen's child, Evan saw the faintest spark of recognition, the seed of something that could grow into respect, friendship, or even loyalty, things the aliens had never before understood about humans. In the silence of the night, as the city below glowed like scattered stars, Evan realized that he was no longer just a prisoner. He was a human in his own right, carrying within him the quiet strength of his species. And in the alien empire, where logic ruled and emotion was a weakness, that strength was beginning to show. Evan awoke to the sound of soft, metallic footsteps echoing through the corridors. The palace was quieter than usual, yet tension lingered in the air like a static charge. The previous days had been filled with routine repairs, small lessons with the Queen's child, and cautious observation from the alien staff. Today, however, something was different. The air seemed heavier, the lights dimmer, and a faint vibration ran through the floor, as if the entire structure was responding to a shift he could not yet understand. He rose and stretched, moving cautiously through the familiar halls. The Queen's child was already awake, standing near the nursery's observation panel, watching the corridors with wide, luminous eyes. Evan approached slowly, offering a quiet smile. "Good morning," he said softly. The child's gaze flicked to him, and for the first time Evan sensed something unusual, curiosity mixed with urgency, a restlessness that had not been there before. "You feel it too?" Evan asked, though he knew the child could not respond in human language. It simply nodded once, its small hand pressing against the transparent panel. He followed its gaze and saw a group of adult aliens moving unusually fast, their movements coordinated but tense. Something was happening beyond the nursery, beyond even the Queen's direct control. A low hum grew louder, filling the corridor with vibrations. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, almost as if the palace itself were alive. Evan realized then that this was not a mechanical problem but a political one. The alien empire was vast, its hierarchy rigid, yet the palace showed signs of internal strain. Factions within the court were positioning themselves, and the Queen, powerful as she was, could not control everything. Human intuition told him that the empire's stability was fragile, and he, as an outsider, could either exploit this or fall victim to it. The Queen appeared without warning, her presence filling the chamber like a shadow eclipsing light. Her eyes, ever calculating, scanned Evan quickly. "You have observed the palace closely," she said. "Do you understand what is happening?" Evan considered his words carefully. "There is unrest. Some factions are challenging authority, and the palace is responding in ways that indicate fear. The systems here are failing not because of mechanics, but because of people." She studied him silently. The way she did so made him aware of the subtle power she held, not through force, but through the simple act of observing. "Your species is unusual," she said finally. "You see patterns where others see only order. That may be your strength or your weakness." Evan bowed slightly, acknowledging her words without submitting. "Understanding allows me to survive," he said, "and survival allows me to act." The Queen's child approached him, curiosity evident in every movement. Evan knelt to meet its level, adjusting a small piece of machinery the child had been examining. The device was simple by alien standards, but complex in its function. Together, they repaired it, a silent collaboration bridging species, trust building in the quiet moments. The Queen watched from a distance, her expression unreadable, yet Evan felt the weight of her attention. Later, Evan was escorted to a viewing chamber. From there, he observed a larger part of the palace. Corridors filled with officials moving in tense patterns, chambers where debates erupted into raised voices, and sections where the guards trained, restless and agitated. A single realization struck him. The alien empire was not invincible. It was structured, yes, disciplined, yes, but fragile beneath its perfection. And humans, even a single one, could influence its course if careful, if daring, and if willing to act with precision. Evan returned to the nursery, the child following closely. "You notice everything," he said, speaking quietly. "Everything that moves, everything that shifts, everything that might break." The child pressed its small hand against his arm, as if acknowledging his words. Evan smiled faintly. He realized that in teaching the child, he was also learning the subtle ways of the alien world, how decisions were made, how loyalty was tested, how fear could override logic. Days passed, and Evan's influence grew quietly. He was called upon to repair minor systems across the palace. A cooling conduit that threatened delicate chambers, a malfunctioning light array that disrupted routines, a locked transport mechanism that caused delays. Each success was noted, each action observed. The aliens recorded his behavior meticulously, but unlike before, they began to seek his input. Small requests emerged: advice on repairs, suggestions on procedures, even methods of calming the restless staff. Evan complied, not out of obedience, but out of calculation. Every small victory built trust, every act of competence reinforced the fragile notion that humans could contribute, could influence, could lead. Then came the moment that would shift the fragile balance entirely. One morning, alarms erupted across the palace. Evan was summoned urgently. The nursery chamber's temperature control had failed catastrophically, threatening the youngest and most vulnerable aliens. Panic rippled through the staff. Devices that had previously functioned flawlessly now flashed red, alarms blared, and the air grew thick with tension. The Queen's child was alone in the chamber, watching the machines with wide eyes, terrified but unable to act. Evan moved quickly, analyzing the systems. The controls were alien, unlike anything he had encountered, yet principles of mechanics and logic still applied. He adjusted conduits, rerouted energy flows, and manually calibrated sensors. Sweat beaded on his forehead as every adjustment required precise timing, every movement could spell success or failure. He worked with the child observing him, mimicking actions without understanding, yet learning nonetheless. Finally, the system stabilized. The temperature normalized, alarms ceased, and the air cleared. The staff exhaled collectively, relief evident in every movement. Evan turned to the child, who ran forward, small arms wrapping around his legs in a gesture that transcended language. The child's eyes glimmered with recognition, gratitude, and something deeper, trust. The Queen arrived moments later, her presence filling the chamber with quiet authority. Her gaze swept over Evan, then the child. "You have done what few of your species could achieve," she said. "Few would remain calm under pressure. Fewer still would succeed." Evan nodded respectfully. "I do what is necessary," he replied. "Humans survive by acting, by adapting, by protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in contemplation. "You teach lessons that cannot be ignored," she said. "Not by words, not by force, but by action. That is dangerous." Evan understood the meaning fully. Danger in this context was not immediate. Danger lay in influence, in demonstrating that humans were unpredictable and capable. He had survived by being useful. Now he had begun to shape perceptions. The Queen's child, in turn, had witnessed these actions and would carry them forward. In the days that followed, Evan continued his work. He moved through the palace with quiet confidence, repairing, teaching, observing. The staff treated him with a mixture of respect and caution. Rumors began to circulate. A human who remained calm, competent, and courageous. Some dismissed it as anecdotal, but others took note. Even the Queen's child began to speak simple words, mimicking phrases Evan used, calling his name softly in moments of discovery or play. Evan realized that the bond with the child was more than incidental. It was a symbol, small yet potent. The child represented the next generation, one that could be influenced by human qualities: patience, ingenuity, courage, and compassion. The implications were clear. Through one small act, through consistent behavior, humans could leave an imprint that transcended immediate survival. Late one evening, Evan stood alone in the observation chamber, overlooking the vast alien city below. The structures stretched endlessly, a testament to precision and order. Yet, amidst the perfection, he noticed subtle flaws: tension among officials, inefficiencies in routines, small pockets of unrest. The alien empire, for all its might, was not flawless. Humans, even a single one, could find pathways where others saw walls. A soft light indicated the Queen's presence. She joined him silently, her gaze distant. "You understand more than most," she said finally. "You see patterns in chaos. That is your strength and perhaps your species' greatest threat to us." Evan remained calm. "We survive because we adapt. We influence because we care. That is human nature. You may not see it yet, but it is powerful." She studied him longer than he expected. No words came for a time. Finally, she nodded slightly, a gesture that conveyed acknowledgement, respect, and perhaps unease. "Your actions will be noted," she said. "Do not presume this will grant you freedom." Evan inclined his head. Freedom was not yet a reality, but influence was. And influence could become leverage, and leverage could become power. Humans were never the strongest by sheer force, but they were cunning, resourceful, and capable of turning small acts into monumental change. That truth was already making its mark here. In the nursery, the child practiced simple tasks, repeating Evan's instructions, learning through observation. The small alien's focus mirrored human curiosity and determination. Evan realized that the child's growth was intertwined with his own influence. Together, they were quietly reshaping perception, demonstrating that humans were not merely fragile creatures, but capable allies, teachers, and agents of change. By the end of the second week, Evan understood the delicate balance he now navigated. He was a prisoner, yet not powerless. He was observed, yet trusted incrementally. He was alone, yet forming bonds that mattered. The Empire was vast, its might unquestionable, yet it had vulnerabilities. Flaws in understanding, cracks in hierarchy, and now, a human who moved through it like water through stone, persistent and unstoppable in small, subtle ways. Evan knew that his journey was only beginning. The Queen's acknowledgement, the child's trust, and the palace's reliance on his skills had set events in motion. The Empire's internal tensions would escalate, the child's attachment would grow, and his actions would have consequences far beyond what anyone yet understood. He was not just surviving, he was shaping the future, one careful act at a time. And in the quiet moments as he watched the city glow under alien skies, Evan allowed himself a small thought. Humans were underestimated at their peril. The Empire might be strong, the Queen powerful, yet a single human, armed with courage, intelligence, and compassion, could change everything. Evan's ship glided quietly through the outer atmosphere, the hum of the engines a soothing constant after the tense days in the alien palace. Freedom at last, or so he thought. The stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and distant, yet beautiful in a way that reminded him of why humans ventured into space. Curiosity, courage, and the drive to explore the unknown. He leaned back in his seat, letting the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. The palace, the Queen, the child, everything felt like a distant memory, though the weight of it lingered. For days, he had moved carefully, repairing, teaching, observing, and influencing. He had won the quiet respect of the Queen and formed a subtle bond with her child. And now, finally, he was returning to human space, carrying knowledge, experience, and stories that could change the way humanity viewed the alien empire. Yet something gnawed at him, a small unease that he could not shake. The child had been quiet during his departure, hiding behind observation panels, eyes wide and searching. Evan had waved and called out softly, and the child had mimicked his words, repeating his name in that soft, alien tone. It had been touching, almost human, but he had pushed the thought aside. It was time to go. Hours passed. The stars flowed past, the ship steady, and Evan allowed himself to relax. He checked the navigation systems, plotted the course home, and reviewed the data he had collected. His mind drifted to small things. The subtle ways the palace staff reacted to him, the unexpected gestures of trust from creatures who had once been indifferent or even hostile, and the quiet moments in the nursery where he had shared knowledge and patience with the child. It had been dangerous work, yet rewarding in a way he had not anticipated. A sudden alert jolted him upright. The ship's communication system blinked, a simple message appearing in symbols he could barely recognize. But the tone was unmistakable, urgency, persistence, and an unmistakable human-like simplicity. Evan frowned, leaning forward. The message repeated, clearer this time. It was a single word repeated over and over, his name. Evan's heart skipped. That voice, soft, high-pitched, yet precise, was calling him. He recognized it immediately, the Queen's child. Somehow the small alien had followed him. Somehow it had escaped the palace. His mind raced. The truce was fragile. Leaving the palace with the child could be interpreted as a threat, a provocation, or even an act of war. Yet abandoning the child would mean certain danger for it. He tapped the controls, trying to trace the source of the signal. It was faint but steady, a small craft moving directly toward him. Evan's mind ran through possibilities, weighing risks. He could continue to human space and ignore the transmission, but he knew what that would mean. The child alone, unprepared, and vulnerable. And he could not do that. Human instinct, morality, and courage demanded he act. Turning the ship around, he plotted a course back toward the signal. Every mile brought tension, every star a silent witness. The small craft moved surprisingly fast, navigating through asteroid fields and debris with precision that was beyond its apparent size. The child had learned, had adapted, and had acted decisively. Evan could not help but admire the ingenuity and determination. As he approached, he saw it clearly. A small, sleek vessel, nearly the size of a single human cockpit, piloted by the child alone. Its small hands moved over controls with skill he could not have anticipated. The child's face pressed against the viewport, eyes wide, focused, and unmistakably calling for him. Evan's heart clenched. He had to intercept, had to protect, and had to act carefully to avoid alarming the alien fleet. He slowed his ship, matching speed, and extended a docking tether. The child's vessel responded immediately, locking in with a precision that was almost frightening in its simplicity. The small hatch opened, and the child climbed aboard without hesitation, rushing toward him with arms outstretched. Evan caught the alien carefully, holding it close, feeling the faint pulse of fear and relief emanate from it. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I've got you." The child's voice echoed in a mixture of alien tones and human words, repeating his name over and over. Evan felt a strange warmth, a connection beyond species, beyond reason. This small creature had trusted him completely, had risked everything to reach him, and now depended entirely on his judgment. The ship's sensors detected alerts. The alien fleet had noticed the child's departure. Weapons were being readied, and orders were being transmitted. Evan realized the magnitude of the situation. He was now a human captain carrying a member of the alien royal line, openly defying the Empire's authority. Yet fear did not govern him. Logic, strategy, and courage guided his decisions. He would protect the child and, if necessary, face consequences later. The child clung to him, trembling slightly. Evan placed a gentle hand on its small shoulder. "We'll get through this," he said firmly, "but you have to stay calm." "Do you understand?" The child nodded, eyes wide but trusting. It was remarkable the way trust had formed across species. Evan's mind raced, calculating potential escape routes, evasive maneuvers, and communications. Humanity had always survived not by strength alone, but by intelligence and courage. This moment was no different. He adjusted course, moving toward a small asteroid cluster to use as cover. The alien fleet's sensors would detect movement, but dense terrain could mask their approach. Evan worked swiftly, guiding the child's small vessel alongside his own. "We need to be careful," he explained. "Follow my lead and don't panic. Everything depends on patience and timing." The fleet's ships appeared on sensors, sleek and formidable. Dozens of vessels, weapons trained, shields activated. Evan's heart pounded, but he forced himself to breathe steadily. Humans were never the strongest in raw firepower, but they excelled in improvisation, strategy, and courage. He would use those strengths now. He initiated evasive maneuvers, weaving through asteroids, using every natural formation as cover. The fleet fired, but the dense debris shielded them. Evan adjusted shields, energy output, and trajectory in perfect synchronization, each action precise, each decision deliberate. The child watched intently, silent but attentive, absorbing the human's every move. Hours passed in tense coordination. Evan guided them through the cluster, finally finding a temporary safe zone far from the main fleet. The child sat beside him, exhausted but alert, eyes wide with wonder and trust. Evan allowed himself a brief smile. They had survived the first test, but he knew this was only the beginning. Communication attempts from the alien fleet continued. Messages were stern, demanding return, warning of consequences, and even threatening force. Evan considered his options carefully. Returning the child would risk its safety and betray the trust that had formed. Continuing to human space would escalate into war. Logic dictated caution, but human morality dictated protection. The choice was clear. He would act, and he would accept the risks. He turned to the child, who met his gaze with a mixture of fear and resolve. "You chose to follow me," he said softly. "I won't abandon you. That is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The child's hands pressed lightly against his arm, a gesture that conveyed understanding far beyond words. Evan activated a temporary cloaking mechanism, using technology salvaged from alien systems and human ingenuity. It was imperfect, but it would delay pursuit. He calculated trajectories, taking into account speed, distance, and the fleet's capabilities. Every decision required precision, yet his confidence was steady. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and he would do so again. As the hours stretched, Evan began to plan their next move. Returning to human space would require evasion, intelligence, and endurance. He would need allies, supplies, and information. But more importantly, he needed to maintain the child's trust. This bond was now critical, not only for immediate survival but for shaping future events. The child spoke suddenly, using a mixture of alien tones and human words. "Evan, stay." The simplicity of the phrase, repeated in its own unique voice, struck Evan profoundly. He realized that the child's loyalty was absolute, formed not by fear or obligation, but by recognition of character, courage, and care. Humans inspired trust in ways alien logic could not fully grasp. Evan adjusted course again, navigating through asteroid fields, using every skill he had honed in years of exploration and engineering. He monitored energy levels, oxygen, and communications, ensuring that the child remained safe and calm. Every decision reinforced one truth. Humans, even alone, could achieve extraordinary feats when driven by morality, intelligence, and courage. The alien fleet grew restless, deploying scouts and warning signals, yet Evan anticipated their moves. He countered with evasive tactics that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. Each maneuver was precise, calculated, and executed with confidence. The child watched, absorbing lessons of strategy and resilience that would shape its understanding of humans forever. Finally, after hours of tense maneuvering, Evan found a temporary corridor of safety, a path that led them away from the immediate pursuit of the fleet, hidden among dense asteroids and energy fields. He allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. The child, exhausted but unharmed, rested beside him, small hands clutching the console as if grounding itself in reality. Evan looked out at the stars, reflecting on the events that had brought them here. The Empire had underestimated humans, had assumed weakness where there was resilience, and had failed to anticipate loyalty born of care, courage, and morality. He understood now that this bond, the trust between him and the child, was more powerful than fleets, weapons, or political authority. Humans had survived countless dangers because of these qualities, and now, even among alien stars, those same qualities shone brightly. He turned to the child one last time before night fell across the cosmos. "We will get through this together," he said firmly. "You trust me and I will protect you. That is what humans do. That is what we always do." The child pressed its small hand against his arm once more, a silent acknowledgement of shared purpose. Evan knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous, full of unpredictable challenges and threats, but he also knew that humanity had a unique strength: the courage to face the impossible, the ingenuity to solve it, and the moral compass to guide action. As long as he held to these principles, he would survive, and so would the child. Evan maneuvered the small ship carefully through the asteroid cluster, the Queen's child still clinging close beside him. The faint glow of distant stars illuminated the hull, casting shadows that danced across the control panels. Every sensor reading, every minor vibration of the ship, reminded him that the alien fleet was still searching. They were persistent, relentless, and capable of devastating firepower. Yet Evan's resolve did not waver. Humans had faced impossible odds countless times, and he was not about to surrender now. "Are we far enough?" the child asked, its voice a mix of alien tones and faint human words it had learned from him. Evan checked the instruments. "We're hidden for now, but only temporarily," he replied. "They will find us if we linger too long. We need a plan, a way to show them that neither of us will be harmed and that leaving peacefully is the only choice." The child nodded, eyes wide but alert. It had learned much from Evan in these few hours: patience, observation, courage, and trust. Evan realized that this small alien, heir to an empire, now carried lessons it had absorbed from a single human being. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, not only for survival but for shaping the future. Evan's mind raced. The alien fleet's sensors were formidable but not perfect. Their scans relied on predictable patterns and known technology. He had seen their calculations, understood their hierarchy, and even noticed moments of hesitation. Humans, after all, thrived on unpredictability, and he planned to use that. He adjusted the ship's trajectory to approach a neutral corridor, a section of space that the fleet avoided due to gravitational anomalies and unstable asteroid fields. The path was narrow and dangerous, but it offered cover. If he moved quickly, he could bring the child to safety and send a clear signal to the fleet that no threat existed. As they approached the corridor, alarms blinked across the console. The alien fleet had detected movement. Evan's heart pounded, but his hands moved steadily, adjusting shields, rerouting power, and initiating evasive maneuvers. The child watched intently, following every movement, learning with a focus that was astonishing. Suddenly, a series of bright pulses lit the viewports. The fleet had fired warning shots, precise energy bursts meant to disable without destruction. Evan maneuvered expertly, dodging each pulse, allowing the child's small vessel to mirror his movements. "Stay close," he instructed. "Trust me, and we will get through this." Minutes stretched into tense hours. Evan calculated every move, every possibility, balancing speed with caution. The fleet's impatience grew evident. Messages came through, commanding him to return the child and warning of consequences. Evan knew the Queen's own position was precarious. Any rash action could provoke a larger conflict. He would need to act decisively and morally, demonstrating human principles that the aliens had not yet understood. The child's small voice broke the silence. "Evan, they will hurt us." Evan glanced at it, softening his tone. "Not if I can help it. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is human nature." The child pressed against him, as if drawing courage from his calm demeanor. Evan smiled faintly, feeling the weight of both responsibility and trust. Humans survived impossible odds because they adapted, observed, and acted with reason, and now he was proving it in real time. As they emerged from the narrow corridor, the alien flagship came into view. Massive, elegant, and imposing, it seemed to float effortlessly in the void, weapons arrayed, shields glowing. Evan knew he had little chance of outrunning it in a direct confrontation, but he also knew something else. Aliens, powerful as they were, could not easily understand human morality. They relied on control, hierarchy, and predictable behavior. Evan's unpredictability, his courage, and his protection of the child could force hesitation. He activated the comm system. A channel opened, static briefly distorting the signal. "Queen," he said calmly, "I have your child. It is safe. We do not want conflict. We will cooperate, but you must understand, hurting it is not an option." Silence followed. Then her voice, calm, authoritative, yet tinged with emotion Evan had not expected. "You defy my orders," she said. "You endanger both yourself and my empire." Evan met her tone evenly. "I protect what cannot protect itself. That is human nature. Your child trusted me. I cannot betray that trust, no matter the consequences." The Queen paused. The fleet around her shifted, subtle signs of uncertainty appearing in their formations. Evan realized he had touched on something they could not easily calculate: morality, loyalty, and trust as weapons more powerful than technology. Humans understood these concepts intuitively, and Evan wielded them as effectively as any engineer wielded tools. She responded finally, her tone measured. "Your courage is noted, yet the consequences will be severe if you do not comply," Evan replied firmly. "I am ready to face consequences, but harming the child is not acceptable. I will defend it if necessary." A tense standoff ensued. The fleet readied weapons, the flagship adjusted position, and Evan guided the child's vessel closer, ensuring both were visible and protected by his ship's shields. Every sensor, every communication, every calculation was precise. He knew that one mistake could escalate into destruction, yet his confidence remained unshaken. Humans thrived under pressure, adapting in ways alien logic could not predict. The Queen's eyes, visible through the comm viewport, revealed something remarkable: hesitation. Evan saw recognition, calculation, and an understanding that his actions were not threats, but demonstrations of principles the Empire had not accounted for. She had underestimated human loyalty, courage, and morality. Evan moved deliberately, opening the ship's systems to broadcast the situation to the fleet. "Observe," he said calmly. "We do not attack, we only protect. There is no threat here beyond loyalty, courage, and care." The child mirrored his gestures, small hands raised, calm and trusting. The visual message was simple yet profound. A human protecting an alien child, defying orders not out of rebellion but out of principle. Moments passed like hours. The Queen studied the display, weighing options. Her child looked toward Evan, small eyes shining with trust and recognition. The fleet hesitated. Evan realized that the power of example, the force of morality, had created a pause in the machinery of war. Humans did not dominate through size, strength, or technology alone. They dominated through principle, courage, and action that inspired loyalty even across species. Finally, the Queen spoke. Return to your position. The child will not be harmed, but you must understand this sets a precedent. Evan nodded. I understand, and the precedent is simple. Loyalty and courage are more powerful than fear. She paused again, longer this time, before issuing orders to the fleet to stand down. Weapons powered down, shields relaxed, and the tension in space lifted slightly. Evan allowed himself a slow exhale. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew the challenge was not over. Trust, influence, and perception would continue to shape the events to come. The child turned to him, small hands gripping his arm. Evan, safe? Yes, he replied softly. We are safe, for now, and I will keep you safe no matter what comes next. Evan guided the child's vessel closer, preparing to return to a temporary safe zone within the asteroid field. He calculated energy reserves, shield strength, and navigation paths meticulously. Every step required precision. Every action demonstrated human intelligence and courage. He knew that in these moments, he was teaching the child not only survival skills, but also lessons about trust, loyalty, and the strength of moral courage. As they moved toward safety, Evan reflected on the events. The alien empire, powerful as it was, had encountered something it could not easily measure: a human's principles applied decisively and courageously. The Queen had recognized it, the fleet had paused, and the child had learned to trust across species. It was a triumph not of weapons, but of character. Humans had survived and prevailed once again, not through force, but through intellect, adaptability, and unwavering morality. Hours later, they reached a secure pocket within the asteroid field. Evan guided the small vessel to a landing point, ensuring stability and comfort for the child. It climbed out slowly, small legs trembling from exhaustion. Evan knelt beside it, offering reassurance. We are safe here. You are unharmed. And we will return only when the time is right. The child looked up at him, eyes filled with gratitude and wonder. Evan, teach, it said simply. Evan smiled faintly. We will continue learning together, he replied. Humans protect, guide, and endure. And now you have seen it firsthand. He realized then that this moment, more than any battle or repair, demonstrated the essence of humanity: courage in the face of danger, intelligence to navigate impossible odds, and loyalty that transcended fear and species. He had not only survived, but he had shaped events, influenced perception, and instilled lessons that would resonate far beyond this asteroid cluster. As they rested, Evan reviewed the path forward. Returning to human space would still require careful planning, stealth, and continued vigilance. The alien empire would not forget the defiance, yet the precedent had been set. Humans acted with courage and morality, and even the most powerful could recognize their influence. The child's small hand rested lightly on his arm, a reminder of the trust placed in him. Evan understood the weight of it fully. Humanity had survived because humans acted decisively, intelligently, and morally. That principle now extended across the stars, influencing a child of the most powerful alien queen in the galaxy. Evan looked up at the distant stars, determination hardening within him. The journey was far from over. The challenges ahead were immense. Yet he knew the truth. Humans did not need to be the strongest physically to shape the course of events. Courage, intelligence, and morality were more potent than weapons, and with these, even one human could change the future of empires. The child glanced up at him once more, small eyes shining. Evan nodded. Together they would face the next trials as humans always had, with resolve, with intellect, and with an unshakable moral compass guiding every action. And in that silent moment, surrounded by asteroids and distant starlight, Evan understood something profound. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would echo for generations. Evan's ship drifted through the asteroid field, the faint glow of distant stars casting long, fragile shadows across the hull. The child sat beside him, small hands resting on the console, eyes wide but calm. For hours, they had navigated the treacherous path back toward the outer reaches of the alien empire, avoiding detection, anticipating patrols, and carefully calculating every move. Evan knew that this was the final phase of their journey, returning the child safely to the Queen, restoring balance, and securing the fragile trust they had built. The child turned to him, voice soft and uncertain. Evan, will she be angry? Evan shook his head slowly. She may be upset, but she will understand. Humans act with courage and responsibility. That is something she can recognize even if she does not show it immediately. The journey back was tense. Scouts from the fleet had been dispatched, scanning every corridor of space, every shadow. Evan anticipated each move, adjusting course, reducing energy signatures, and making use of natural cover. Every decision was deliberate, every action precise. He had learned much in the palace about alien technology and strategy, but his greatest advantage remained human ingenuity. Adaptability, resourcefulness, and moral clarity had carried them this far, and they would carry them the rest of the way. Hours later, the distant silhouette of the Queen's flagship appeared, immense and regal against the backdrop of space. Its weapons arrays gleamed, shields rippling faintly as it maintained position. Evan guided the ship closer, signaling his intention to dock safely. The child watched, small shoulders tense, eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and trust. Evan reached out, placing a reassuring hand on its arm. "We will be fine. Trust me, as you have all along." The flagship's docking bay opened slowly. Guards and attendants observed silently, weapons at the ready, yet restrained by the Queen's authority. Evan guided the child aboard carefully, ensuring that every movement was deliberate, calm, and non-threatening. As they entered the chamber where the Queen waited, Evan felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. Yet he did not falter. Humans did not succeed by fear or submission. They succeeded by courage, clarity, and integrity. The Queen stood in the center of the chamber, her presence commanding as ever. Her child ran forward, stopping just short of her, small hands still clasped tightly to Evan's. Evan knelt beside the child, ensuring its safety while preparing for the confrontation he knew would come. The Queen's gaze swept over him, sharp and unyielding, yet there was something new in her eyes. Recognition, calculation, and an acknowledgement that went beyond protocol. "You have returned," she said slowly. Her voice carried authority but also curiosity, as if weighing possibilities. "You have risked much. Explain why you defied the fleet and protected my child." Evan met her gaze evenly. "Because it was the right thing to do. Humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is our principle, our nature. The child trusted me, and I could not betray that trust without destroying the bond that could shape the future. I accept any consequences for my actions." The Queen paused, considering. Around them, attendants and guards waited, uncertain. The child, small and fragile yet alert, looked from Evan to the Queen, silently observing every gesture, every tone. Evan understood that the child had learned much from this experience: courage, loyalty, and the strength of trust across species. Finally, the Queen spoke again, slower this time. "Your actions have consequences, yet they demonstrate a principle we do not fully understand: moral courage. You have protected what others might see as inconvenient or weak. That is significant." Evan remained calm. "It is the way humans endure, the way humans influence. We survive not by dominating, but by understanding, adapting, and acting rightly. That is how we thrive." The Queen's eyes softened slightly, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. She looked at her child, then back to Evan. "You have shown lessons that cannot be ignored. Your species is more than I anticipated." A tense silence followed. The attendants exchanged cautious glances, but no one moved. The Queen's words, deliberate and measured, carried authority, yet recognition as well. Evan had proven, not through violence or threats, but through action and principle, that humans could influence even the most rigid empire. Evan helped the child step closer to the Queen. Small hands clasped hers, and for a brief moment, a quiet connection passed between them. It was a bond of trust and recognition, something that transcended species, power, and politics. Evan felt a faint sense of relief. The immediate danger had passed, but the implications would last far longer. The child had learned courage, and the Queen had learned to respect it. "You have done what few of your kind could," the Queen said finally. "Your courage and morality have prevented conflict and taught lessons that will influence my empire. That is valuable." Evan bowed slightly, acknowledging her words without pride. "Thank you. I did what any human would do: protect, endure, and act rightly." The Queen regarded him thoughtfully, then gestured toward her attendants. Orders were given, subtle and precise, instructing the fleet to stand down, ensuring that no further hostilities would occur. It was a quiet acknowledgement of the bond and trust Evan had demonstrated. The child, small and alert, looked up at him with admiration, understanding fully that human courage had made a difference not only for them, but for the Empire itself. Later, in a private chamber, Evan and the child sat together. The Queen allowed them space, recognizing the trust that had formed. Evan explained gently, "Your courage and intelligence have helped us both. You trusted me and I protected you. That is how humans build trust. We act and we endure." The child listened intently, eyes wide and glowing faintly. It had learned much in this short, intense journey. The value of trust, the weight of responsibility, and the quiet strength humans carried, not in size or power, but in principle, courage, and intelligence. Evan smiled softly. Humanity had been underestimated, yet here, even among the stars, their nature shone brightly. As the days passed, Evan moved freely within the palace, no longer a prisoner, but a visitor, a teacher, and a guide. The Queen observed quietly, allowing subtle changes to take place. The staff and attendants, initially wary and cautious, began to adapt, seeing the human's principles and actions reflected in the child and acknowledged by the Queen herself. Evan spent time teaching, repairing, and guiding. The child remained at his side, learning, observing, and practicing the lessons of courage, loyalty, and intellect. Together, they demonstrated that even in an empire built on control and logic, morality, principle, and trust could wield influence greater than any weapon. The Queen occasionally approached, observing silently. She spoke rarely, but when she did, her words were measured and insightful. "You have shown that courage and loyalty can influence even the strongest systems," she said once. "Your species is underestimated, but I see now that it should not be." Evan nodded, understanding the weight of her acknowledgement. The Empire had faced a human and recognized a truth it could not ignore. Humans could shape events through intellect, morality, and courage. They were unpredictable, adaptable, and capable of earning trust across species. Eventually, the time came for Evan to depart. The child, small yet confident, hugged him tightly. "Evan, come back," it said, voice filled with hope and trust. Evan smiled, gently returning the embrace. "I will," he said, "and next time we will face the universe together, learning and teaching as we go." The Queen watched, her expression unreadable yet thoughtful. She stepped forward, placing a hand briefly on the child's shoulder. "Humans are not as weak as we believed," she said softly. "Perhaps there is more to learn from them than I imagined." Evan prepared his ship for departure, every action deliberate, calm, and precise. The child waved from the viewing platform as he launched, small hands pressed to the glass. As the ship rose into the stars, Evan reflected on the journey, the palace, the Queen, the fleet, and the child. He had faced impossible odds, navigated complex moral and political challenges, and emerged victorious not through force, but through courage, intellect, and unwavering principle. The journey home stretched endlessly, but Evan felt a quiet confidence. Humanity had been underestimated, yet here, in the vast expanse of alien space, they had demonstrated their true strength. Influence was not won through domination alone. It was earned through morality, action, and courage. He looked back one last time at the planet below, shimmering faintly under the starlight. The child's presence, the Queen's acknowledgement, and the lessons learned would ripple across the Empire. Humanity had left an impression that could not be ignored. Evan's heart swelled with quiet pride. Humans survived not because they were the strongest physically, but because they acted rightly, thought clearly, and inspired trust even in the unlikeliest of allies. That truth, carried across space by one human and one small alien, would shape events for generations. And as he set course for home, stars streaming past the viewport, Evan allowed himself a small thought. Humanity had always endured, and now, even among alien empires, their spirit shone brighter than ever. The child's voice called softly through the ship's communicator. "Evan, human strong?" Evan smiled. "Yes," he said quietly, "we always are." The ship surged forward into the infinite darkness, carrying with it courage, trust, and the undeniable proof that humans, though underestimated, could influence empires, save lives, and leave a legacy that reached across the stars. And somewhere far below, an alien queen silently acknowledged that the species she had once considered fragile was, in fact, remarkably powerful.